Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Bionicle Inspiration Series podcast. Today, we have an extra special guest on the show. We've actually never had them before, which you might be sitting here and being like, wow, that's very exciting. So today, we have the girlfriend of Patrick Biggs, Maddie, joining us on this podcast, and some other guy named Patrick. So, pleasure to have you on. How are you today?
Why, thank you.
You've been having a good day. I heard you caught 9 shiny Tricos in the local Pokemon Day community event.
I did. It was very successful.
This is fantastic. And I heard some other guy hatched a shiny Feebas right after he said, I've never had shiny Pokemon.
Yeah, just some guy.
Yeah, I don't even know who that was.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard he was rather handsome and had mocks in the Lego house. Was on a local news channel as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I totally want to talk about. Wait, you were on 2 local news channels?
Well, I was in the studio for one that was my own segment, and then another one interviewed me in the morning before Cascade one morning with like a group of people.
Whoa, I haven't seen that. Awesome. Okay, that's so cool. Can we talk about that? Because so how did that happen? Because you built the funky Portland Darth Vader guy, and then so basically you made milkshakes, and then guys came to your yard, and you were on a news channel.
Yeah. Yeah, so I built his like nickname is the Unipiper because he's a unicycling bagpiper, so the Unipiper.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do a like Portland themed mock for Bricks Cascade just to show off the local thing and just be like, I love Portland and this is my home and this is our convention. And I was like, and Pastor was like, you could probably build the Unipiper in like a day. And it was like literally like 4 days before the convention. And I was like, I probably could do that in a day. And so I did. And then I posted it and tagged the Unipiper in it on Instagram. And he reposted it and lovingly gave me credit and tagged me, which was fantastic because a lot of people don't. And then one of the local newspapers blogged it. And then a like local blog blogged it, and it like skyrocketed on Reddit, and then on Instagram I got a DM that at first I was like, maybe this is fake.
Yeah.
And it just was from one of the local news station employees who does her own little segment about like things around town. And she was like, hey, I saw your Unipiper. He's a longtime friend of our show. I'd love to have you on and talk about Bricks Cascade. And I was like, okay. Cool. She's like, are you free tomorrow? And I was like, well, yes, I am. And then she didn't reply until the next morning. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
And she was like, and so like that morning that it was supposed to be of, she's like, hey, sorry for being so late. She's like, do you have any pictures? We'd love to see you here today at like 6:45 tonight. And it'll be great. And at that point in time, we already had 2 people in town that we picked up from the airport for Cascade 2. And Madison was sick.
And I was super sick.
No.
Yeah.
But we went to the studio.
Did you come with him to the studio?
Oh, yes. He needed somebody to carry all the stuff, too, with him. You had, like, 2 boxes worth of things, I think.
Yeah, because they were like,
so large.
we could build something on air. And I was like, we're not going to do that. But I brought a handful of, like, loose parts, and, like, we displayed them on the table with my Unipiper and I think the Sun Dragon.
Yes.
And,
balancing tail one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they sat there on the table, and we just talked about my mocks, and we talked about Bricks Cascade. The whole thing was like 4 minutes long. But they got really excited beforehand when they discovered that I had a display in Denmark too. And so
yeah, I imagine.
They were like, well, let's talk about that on air.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty cool. Like I had a good time. It was over. Like I was nervous about it literally all day, and then it was.
I imagine, yeah.
It was over in like 5 minutes.
So they have that schedule down there. Like it's kind of incredible how almost mechanical they've got. Like they're like, all right, you're here in like 1 minute. It'll be time for your segment. We're going to commercial. Like next guy's coming out. Like it was really neat.
It was really neat.
That's super cool. That's awesome. It's funny because this is just becoming the humble brag podcast.
That's fine.
I have work with a studio at the moment, actually, Lego related as well. Cool. There's a reality TV show that's coming out called Lego Masters.
Oh, I think I saw an ad for that.
Yeah. One of my friends is in it too. He comes to Brickvention in Melbourne, which is super cool. So they're having a launch party here in Perth for whatever reason. And some guy reached out to me on Facebook and he's like, hey, can we talk? Because we want some Lego there. And I was like, sure. And he called me. He's like, I don't know how we got your contact details, but we did. And kept going. I was like, okay, first off, what? Did you stalk me? I don't understand.
It's not creepy at all, sir.
Yeah. And then he's like, yeah, so we have this launch party. Like, can we get you to come and decorate? Can we, you have Lego, can we put it there? And can you like come and talk and stuff? I'm like, sure. And it was really funny because he was like, do you have that? I was like, yeah, I have like, and I counted. I was like, yeah, I got like 60 MOCs to bring. And he's like, oh man, like, wow. And he started swearing. And I was like, this feels really suspicious. Why would the business executive man start swearing at me? And then he's like, yeah, like, I'll send you an email and we'll figure this out. And I was like, cool. And then like a month later, he's like, oh yeah, like you should come meet me at the studio and we'll do stuff. And I was like, why are you barely replying to me? And then I went in and he's like, yeah, so it's a launch party, we're decorating it. And he's like, we need this, and this. And he's like, can you just decorate this entire wall with Lego? I'm like, no, that's impossible. I don't have that much Lego, and I have a lot of Lego, but I can't do that. And he's like, oh, okay. And so we figured stuff out, and so I'm bringing MOCs in for it, which is super cool. And then there'll be like radio people there, and some of the hosts on the show I think will also be there, which would be cool. Yeah, which is awesome. But it's funny because you're saying like they have it all down to a T, and like it took him a month to reply to me. Like,
so it was a lot less perfect.
Yeah, a lot less. Yeah, which is interesting because I imagine both studios, just because they're studios, would be super like, but they've been like, nah.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. Yeah, but that's cool. When I watched your interview with the lady for your local place, I forgot because I saw that you had the Sun Dragon guy, like you said. I for some reason thought that was your Jafer dragon. So when she asked like, "Who's this?" I was so expecting to be like, "This is my friend Jafer. He is a dragon."
He's real.
Like, what? Yeah.
This is
The whole time I was like,
by
"How are you?"
dragon?
Yeah, I was like, how are you going to explain this? Like, I have a friend who lives in Australia, and I made him as a dragon. He's not a dragon, but like he kind of is, and yeah. And then you're like, no, I built this for a contest. I was like, no, I got the wrong MOC. But
to be fair, it was a contest that Joss hosted, so I mean he's involved.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. There you go.
I can't actually contribute to this part.
That's fine. Joss is a cool guy who lives in Australia. In fact, I think on our last podcast we talked about one of his MOCs back when he was only half as famous as he is now, because now he's like world big time.
Yeah. But that's so cool that you had all those awesome opportunities. Speaking of awesome opportunities, I wanted to talk to you about this the minute that it happened, and we only just got to rounds of the podcast. But your MOCs are in the Lego house. I remember when you were posting pictures and you were there. Like I was trying so hard to not be super jealous and mad at you, but I couldn't. I was like, Patrick's in the Lego house, they've got his MOCs in there. That's so cool. Like I know you said on the news show that you got sent an email and it went into your junk, and then you checked it like a day before the deadline went, which would have been terrifying. But that's super cool. Can you talk to me about how like all that went down?
Yeah, So
that was a weird day.
It was a weird day. So we set up in September in the Lego house. I got the email in March, so a year ago. And
oh wow.
Yeah, they have a long turnaround for that. So I got the email. I actually was at work, and my friend Andrew, who's the Lug ambassador for BZ Power, he texted me and he said, "Hey, you need to check your emails." And I went, "Why?" And he went, "Just do it." And so I checked them, and I was like, "There's nothing here." And so then I checked the junk mail folder of my secondary email address, and I was like, "Oh, dang!" And it wasn't even the day before; it was the day of. I had like 12 hours to send the email. Apparently, when I hadn't responded, the community manager for the Lego house talked to the community manager for Lugs. And was like, "Hey, we're trying really hard to make sure we have a construction builder in here at all times. Who is our best lug contact for that?" And then Kim messaged Andrew and was like, "Hey, do you know this guy? Is he your friend? Will you talk to him?" Yeah. And then Andrew and I are like long time, like 11 years friends now. And so he just texted me. He was like, "Hey, do this." And I was like, "Great." And so I texted back and I was like, did you know about this? He was like, I knew about it an hour ago when they messaged me and said, do you know this guy? And so I got
cool.
really, really lucky, and I replied, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. This went to my junk mail folder. What do we do now? And they went, great, we're excited to have you here. We will fly you out, we'll put you up in a hotel, you'll display, it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be in September, and we'll email you again soon. And I was like,
That's
great,
the coolest.
Great, super cool, super excited. Literally, like, sent Madison a text message, like a picture of the email, like talked to a couple other friends, because there was no like when I did the G2 launch event and was on like part of the pre-release team, they sent me the pre-release parts. I was under an NDA and I couldn't talk about it, but there was no NDA for the Lego House. There was no like this is a secret, and so I was like, all right, who can I tell literally right now? Because I was so excited. And I was at work in the bathroom.
Yes.
No.
Best place to text at.
And it was a little nerve-wracking, simply because the emails back and forth would be like a month apart.
Oh gosh.
Like they'd email me like, hey, send us a list of 10 builds that you want to display. So I'd send them a list of 10, and they were like, cool. And they were like, oh, like we'll pick from these 10, and we can talk about it. And then I actually got all the way up to August. And Stuart, who's in charge of the Lego House, was actually at Brick Fair, Virginia, and I was talking to him, and I was like, "Hey, Stuart," I was like, "We haven't picked MOCist yet, and that's in 3 weeks." And he was like, "Oh," and like he literally emailed me the next day from Virginia while we're at the Brick Fair, and he picked 4 of them, and I was like, "Great." And the thing is the space is massive, and he was like, "We'll just do 4," and I was like, "All right, I appreciate the Danish minimalism, but we could definitely do 6." But we did 4.
Smart.
Nice. They picked the 4. They the whole thing's invite only. It is worldwide. It was a cool mix. Like when I actually got to Denmark and I got to Billund, there was this awesome mix of people from all over the world. There was an Austrian woman, a Canadian woman, somebody from Hong Kong, somebody from South Korea. There was I think there was 3 or 4 of us from the US. Mm-hmm. It was just super, super cool. Like I got to Billund, and then my friend Corbin, who's on the city design team, he picked me up at the airport, and he dropped me off at the hotel, and I got into the hotel, and there was a gift like bag waiting for me in the hotel room from Lego. That was like, here are some snacks, and it tied you over. Here's the Tree of Creativity set that we've autographed. And I was like,
I hate you so much.
And I was like, this is super neat. And then I took a nap. And then
the highlight of my Lego tour.
And then Corbin came and he picked me up, and we went to dinner with a couple other designers, and we had a great time, and we stayed up real late just talking, and then the next day all the actual like Lego event stuff started, and we all met at the Lego House, and it was super cool, and we started setting up, and my stuff took an hour, and some people took 14 hours. And so I just, I got to hang out, and I got to meet all these new people, and it just was honestly one of the most incredible experiences of my life. The downside was not having cellular phone service. And so I was just messaging people whenever I had Wi-Fi, and I was like, I'm on Wi-Fi right now. Hey guys, how's it going? I'm in Europe. And so it was super cool. And it happened both. It took 6 months from the time they emailed me to the time that it actually happened. But at the same time, it went by so quickly, and it's just been an incredible time. And the Lego House is great. If anybody ever gets an opportunity to go, they should absolutely go, because it's one of the coolest places I've ever been. And I found a cool Bionicle like G1 internal use like Lego mug at one of the thrift stores for coffee, and I'm very excited about it.
Oh, I want a cool Bionicle mug from the Lego House. Man, that's so cool, dude. But so my question, when all this was happening and you were sitting on the toilet getting the email, hopefully talking to the man in the store next door, and he's like, I don't even know what that is. What were you doing, Madison? Were you, where were you when the email went through?
Was I at work?
You were probably at home still.
I was either at home or at work.
Yeah, because that was one of my opening shift mornings, so I would have been at work at 4 a.m., so I was probably on lunch, so it was probably 6:30 a.m.
Yeah, I would have been asleep, so I probably woke up to it like an hour or 2 later, and was just like, oh, Pat texted me. What's going on?
I imagine they didn't let you have a +1 for that though.
Oh, I wish.
No, I would have
Yeah.
immediately. I would have 100% taken Madison. We actually, because they're to get my stuff back, they are like, well, you can fly yourself here and take care of your own expenses, or we can mail it to you. And I'm hoping that Madison and I can go out and go get my stuff, and then also make it in time for the Scareback Festival.
Oh yeah, cool.
And so that would be nice. And that way Madison can actually get to go see the Lego house in Billund. Because, I mean, Madison's a longtime Lego fan, so she's not just like my girlfriend, but Madison was a BZ Power moderator and a Bionicle builder for a good chunk of her life. And she's been featured in magazines for her mocks. And she was a model builder at Legoland.
Yeah.
Well, you were a model builder at Legoland? That's cool as hell. Oh man. What was that like?
Well, do you want the like neutral version or the like actual version?
The actual version.
Okay.
Because the neutral version would be like, it was great.
Yeah, it's going into it, I was like, this is it. Like, this is going to be the job that, you know, in 30 years I'm going to retire from, and it's going to be amazing.
Uh-huh.
And I never actually worked on site at Legoland,
Oh.
which really sucked because the job description said that it was like the on-site one. And during my interview, I asked about it, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, it said that this position is an on-site one. And I was at an off-site facility, and they were like, oh, no, that shouldn't have been in the description. We need to like update that. And I was like, okay. But then they offered me the job, and it was like, so you're going to be working at this off-site model shop that was like a mile,
maybe
a mile or two away from Legoland. And it was in this like nondescript business park area, essentially.
Yeah.
You would never know it's there, like, at all. There's no signage that indicates it, and it's very strange. But it also made it really funny when we get like people coming to like drop a package off, and like the UPS guy would be like, whoa, and we'd be like, you can't come in here. You're literally not allowed in here. Everything is under NDA of some sort. like we're working on stuff for Dubai and Legoland Japan. Like, you're not allowed in here, man.
That's cool.
So yeah, I was working in an offsite facility, and it's also in Southern California, in like San Diego area, which is a rather expensive place to live.
Yeah.
And I was making $12 an hour.
What?
And combined with, you know, Pat's own, what he was making at Starbucks, we were just like, okay, like, it'll be kind of like make ends meet a little bit, but like, it'll be doable. And it just, I don't know, like, it kind of killed my desire to build, because when you're building for 40 hours a week, and it's not even like something that you're like, yeah, I want to build this.
Yeah.
Like, because I didn't really get a lot of like creativity allotment there. Like, occasionally I was able to go and like design the mini landers for things. So like, I have a bunch of mini landers that are in Legoland Dubai right now, which I had a lot of fun with.
Sick.
And I made like all these really like strange different ones, and like I made one of my grandparents sitting on a bench together, and a bunch of different ones. But like beyond that, it was like, here's like what somebody else designed, and then you're gonna put it together.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, I just it really bummed me out, because going into it, I was so excited to be able to combine like teaching and interacting with families and children with like my passion for Lego.
Yeah.
And I just like never really got that chance. And I'm always just like, oh, I wonder how it would have been if I had actually been on site and, you know, working with the public and, you know, hanging out with these visitors and doing all that.
Yeah, I get you.
So,
I get you. That makes sense. That's
Well, and your
sense,
job like in the warehouse was basically just headphones in, like nobody talks to each other.
I listened to so much Rooster Teeth podcast while I was there. Like, it was a little ridiculous. Like, I had to find more podcasts because I just kept running out of stuff to listen to.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In a way, it was kind of lucky, though, because not even
6 months later.
Yeah, like 8 months later, they ended up laying off the entire staff and moving the entire model shop and merging it with the one in Legoland, Florida, which they were in the process of like building and finding a location for it when I was there. and there was several people who were like transferred there. Like the main guy in charge of ours ended up being in charge of the one in Florida, but like everybody was just kind of laid off, and there wasn't any opportunity to transfer to Legoland California's, like even just in a different position there. So I was like, I kind of dodged a bullet, like leaving on my own terms, but it just, yeah, it bummed me out for a while.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
I get you. It's interesting you say that, because I know someone, I won't say who they are just because, you know, privacy, but I know someone who works for Lego, and before they worked for Lego, I didn't know them, but I was speaking to people who knew them before, and he was in a punk band. He like had like a mohawk, and like he was loving life, and he's just like a wild child. He was a cool guy. And then he got this job with Lego, and now he has like combed back hair. He has like always got a collar shirt on, and he's super like like fitting into that Lego brand. And when I spoke to him at an event that I was at, he was kind of doing a lot of stuff there, and we went to one of the Lego shops afterwards and stuff. And like I spoke to him a fair bit. He was a very nice guy, awesome dude. But there was just something about him that I'm like, I feel like you're dying inside, dude. Like, I feel like you're changing yourself to please other people, to fit into this brand and this model. And, like, it's just a hunch. But I spoke to, like, other people spoke to me about it, saying, like, I feel like he's doing this. I'm like, I've been getting that vibe too. And, like, it really sucks. Like, I'd hate for people to have to do that, to have to change themselves to fit in with, you know, a company, or just to kind of fit in or whatever. I don't know. But, I just found that super interesting, you know, just being around him, you could get that energy and that vibe off of him. And, like there was one time that we were about to go to the Lego shop for an event that was happening there, and he was all like, I was like, hey, you excited for the event tonight? And he's like, yeah, I get to work for another 5 hours. Great. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, man. But it's just interesting that happens, you know, like, it seems like a similar, not quite the same, but similar experience to what you were having, Madison. But he at least interacts with the public and kids a bit more, though. I did, you know, which is different to your job in that sense. But interesting. I mean, of course, like I said, like I'm 100% mind reading here. I have no idea if any of this is true. It's just a hunch that a few other people that agreed with me with and stuff like that. And I don't necessarily think Lego is to blame with that. I don't think Lego is like putting down the corporate hammer and being like, you can't be that anymore. I imagine that it's just kind of like that pressure of just like, oh geez, I got to be this, and similar elements to what you were saying, Madison, of like how, you know, you can't always necessarily go down the creative routes that you want to with those sorts of jobs. It's sort of, you have to kind of fit in a specific way. So maybe he kind of feels more of a pressure than he needs to, I guess. But look, it's just interesting that there's these parallels that we're drawing. But that said, though, if someone wants a job with Lego, I don't think everyone's going to end up with that. Or end up like that, rather. I know countless people who have done Lego stuff and absolutely love every second of it. So don't be discouraged if you're hearing that. I imagine these are very much outliers for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think Matt's been talking about this a lot, and I think there's an aspect to this where, I mean, you know, like I'm in my 30s, and Madison's almost there, and so we've been in the community for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we've both been on like BZ Power and stuff since like early 2000s. And just seeing the rise of things like Instagram and people thinking of themselves as a brand instead of as a like person in a hobby online has been super interesting to see. I mean, you know, I talk to people all the time who are just like, oh, I have to post something at least once a week. I have to make sure I'm engaging with my followers. I have to keep like doing this stuff, and they've turned their hobby into a pseudo job that doesn't actually pay anything. And there's always this concept too, where people are like, oh, like do what you love for a hobby, but as a career, and you'll never work a day in your life. But in reality, it's really like if you turn the thing that was your relaxing like free time into your career, like suddenly you don't have a relaxing free time. Sure. Like you don't have a thing that sparks that like freedom and joy in you as much, because suddenly you're working with deadlines and you're working with other people's desires, other people's plans, or you're like, you turn something in and you go, I really like this and I think you like this too, and they go, I don't know, could you make the blue a little different? And you're like,
there's 4 blues to choose from, Lego, what do you want?
And so you're like, well, like, so you're like, I get it, And like the idea, people are like, oh, I want to find something that I love doing, and then I want to do it like that. But a lot of people don't understand that when you turn your hobby into a job, not only do you now have like no hobby, but you have no real distinction between who you are professionally and
Yes,
personally.
for sure. Because I like, it always blows my mind whenever I'm on Instagram and I see so many people doing it when they're like, I'm sorry I have been so inactive recently. I promise I'll post more. And it's like, dude, chill. It's okay. like I don't like, even if I absolutely love this one person's content and whenever they post something, it's awesome. I always love seeing it. It's like, dude, if you're busy for like a month or even a whole year, you do you, boo. Like, that's fine. Go live your life. Like, you have no like obligation to be posting all the time. But look, I can understand, and I think there is sort of this kind of, there's probably a technical term for it, but this sort of like celebrityism to some degree of like, I feel that social media kind of promotes this need for fame in society in general, not even like, you know, a select group of people or whatever. So I can kind of understand there might be a sort of societal pressure on that. But I 100% agree with you. Like, don't let that kill your vibe, and don't let that kill like your love of the hobby, because to some degree it can create so much pressure. It's even like when I did the live stream the other day, a couple of people were asking me like, where's Shadow Gear and stuff, like, and it's like, hey, like, he's out living his life, like, there's no pressure, he doesn't need to be posting all the time, you know. And like, I remember when there'd be certain periods where I wouldn't post for ages, and some people would be like, oh, you're alive, like, you're back, like, yeah, and it's kind of this like, where were you, you know, like, it's like, I'm just living my life, leave me alone, you know. I'm not necessarily saying that's a good or bad thing, also, but it is, you're right, it's so interesting, yeah.
Well, especially when you're like, oh, I'm putting out a like free content. Like, I've seen that with web comics, or even people like writing like fan fiction when they're like people are like, where's the next chapter? Like, where's the next one? And it's just like, I'm not making money off of this. Like, I'm just doing it for free. Like, unless you're gonna start, you know, throwing cash my way.
Yeah, because it's funny. It's something with doing Biss. I've certainly noticed how. Yeah, like when you study art and it's like, the Art Nouveau period. This is clearly with the expansion of this technology, it brought growth to this form of art because that was prevalent. And you know, when you look at it over time, you see how art has grown because of societal things and Like, I've certainly noticed with Bionicle that happening because, you know, you look at pre-CCBS MOCs versus now, when Hero Factory and CCBS started to come out, how drastically MOCs have changed. And then you look at now when we have no construction sets at all on shelves, so now people are sort of shifting towards more system in MOCs and stuff like that. Like, to some degree, you could look at it like an art history class. And so it's so interesting to note how the parts we have available and the technology of the time and just the kind of way of life and people's lifestyles and stuff has shifted the community and the art that we make as a result. And yeah, it's super interesting. Whether or not, like, me saying all this is not like we're in a bad time, we need to change the way we're living. I don't know, it is what it is, you know. Like, I can see cons in it to some degree. It's like, well, let people live their lives, but I can also see, like, you know, we also live in a really cool time where we have daily content all the time, you know. And it's like that. Like, I get a lot of questions. Some of them, I don't think any of the questions that we're talking about today that I got from audiences relate to it, but a bunch of questions I got was people like, you know, can the Bionicle community survive even though there's no dead set? And like, people have this weird obsession with like, is the Bionicle community dead? And I don't know, I'm always surprised by that, because it's like, no, it's kind of alive and thriving to some degree. Sure, it's not 2000 and...
Does it have a pulse?
It doesn't have a pulse, yeah.
Does it have a pulse? Because I think technically it's alive.
Yeah, exactly.
If it twitches when you poke it.
yeah. Check its tongue. Is it gonna choke? No, like, it's people are still building and there are no sets on the shelves kind of thing. Like, of course, it's still alive and thriving. And, you know, we have people like Anthony Wilson and Jafer and some guy named Patrick who constantly are building good stuff and posting it and revolutionizing the way that we use those pieces. So, like, yeah, of course it's alive and thriving. It's just very different. It's not 2005. It was 2005 at Nika. And whatever year that was. You know, we don't have... my joke is ruined now. We don't have that cool band that sung Move Along giving us...
The All-American
Rejects.
Yes, we don't have the All-American Rejects giving us music to fit our Bionicles, you know? Like, it's a different age for Bionicle right now, right?
Fun fact about the All American Rejects.
Yeah.
They're from the same town that I went to college in.
Is that right? That's super cool.
Yeah.
That's true.
Nice.
Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Nice.
The thing is, too, with like keeping the community alive. Like when we were at Bricks Cascade a few weeks back, a month back, a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
Like there were multiple like specifically there was a set of like a boy and a girl twin together that were probably like 10 who were just like, we know everything about Bionicle.
Yeah.
And honestly, like getting like younger kids into it is what will also help keep it around.
For sure.
Like I'm part of a quilting guild, and there's always like, oh, what if, like, how are we going to keep the quilting community alive? Like, what will we do to keep modern quilting around? And it's just like, well, if you actively encourage the younger generation and, our generation to come to it and participate in it, we'll probably keep it around for a while.
Yeah.
But, like, if you don't, I don't know, don't make that effort, like, it drives me mad at conventions when they're like, oh, kids are here. And it's like, yeah, if they're not showing up to this, like, these teenagers or even, like, younger than that, like, this isn't going to be here in 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Also, we're playing with a kid's toy.
Yeah, we're playing with a kid's toy.
Yes.
What are you expecting, Steve?
Damn it.
Like,
Damn it, Steve.
Dude, it's a children's toy.
Yeah.
Don't talk about my dad like that.
One thing that the local lug here in Perth does exceptionally well, and it's something that I often dismiss because it's not for me, but when I heard the lug ambassador talking about it, I was like, oh my god, why is no one else doing this? We have our Bricktober in Perth, our Lego convention. Half of it is MOCs and the other half is areas for kids to play and build their own stuff. And the inner AFOL in me is like, why is that not area for more MOCs? Why are we not doing that? But then he had this chat with me where he's like, that's what Lego's about. And I was like, yeah, of course it is. I 100% agree with you. And then he was like, he directly speaks to lug people like Kim, like you were talking about before, in the ambassador network and stuff. And he's like, Lego, can you give us the facts and the knowledge that you learn in like your child study stuff for how to kind of grow creativity in kids? And one of the facts that they got back was kids who engage with Lego with their parents are like, I think it's something like 80% more likely to become AFOLs in the future. And so our guy who runs the convention here, he's like, right, so now from now on, any of our play experiences, we need to get the parents involved too, because then we can create AFOLs and then we can keep the community alive and have these kids coming and displaying years from now. And it's not about, ticket sales and revenue. It's like, no, let's have a community, let's continue that and have it be awesome. And when he told me that, I was like, holy crap, that's insanely cool. Like, I had never even thought about it like that. And why wasn't I? That's so cool. And then I told him, I was like, you know what? When I was at Brickvention this year, there was absolutely no area for people to play with Lego as kids. And he was like, are you kidding me? What?
No.
And then I was like, you know what? When I was at Brickworld Chicago, there was also no area for kids to play. And he was like, are you kidding me? And he's like, that's the biggest convention in Australia and like the second possibly biggest convention in America. And there wasn't areas for kids to play with Lego. Like, what is going on?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brick Fair Virginia has a couple but they're not huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
But back to Cascade. Sorry, because I'm thinking about Cascade.
Don't be sorry.
They had a Duplo area to build on. They had a brick base plate wall that kids could and like families could come build on.
Cool.
And then they had just like basic system stuff in a separate area. And then they had an entire area that was just like draw and color on these like Lego coloring sheets.
Yeah.
And those were like hopping areas the whole time. And it was like I'm pretty sure there were kids that sat in like the system area and just built for like 2 hours and their parents were like, this is fine.
That's awesome.
I can check on all my Instagram now. And they were just into it. And I know those kids probably went home and were just like, we have to build more.
Yeah.
Like, what can we make from what we have here?
Yeah. That's so cool.
I mean, 100%.
Yeah, wow. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. And because it's like Patrick said, we're playing with a kid's toy. Like, I remember the days when, and this might have been a made up statistic, but it sounded legit, where I think this was like 2010, where I think the statistic was 1% of Lego's target audience is AFOLs. And I think now, it's like 10%. Like, I think it has grown, but it's nowhere near like the major thing. And yet,
I think it's somewhere around 5.
that wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, was it German boys is 6 to 14 or still the audience.
Yeah. And then like, you know, we get the Cloud City set and it's like, yeah, it's a UCS set and people are like, no, it's not. It's awful. This is the worst set ever. And blah, blah, blah. And it's like, kids are going to play with this. Are you joking? Like, chill, guys. You know? Yeah. And I'll be honest, my favorite Lego set, the playset Death Star set, which, you know, hardcore UCS collectors would be like, that's not a UCS set, you know? But that's my favorite set. I've probably logged 100 play hours in that. Like, that's so much fun, that set. Yeah, and I mean that was from when I was more in the target audience of Lego, I imagine, because I was probably about 10 at the time. But although probably half of those hours are when I was not in the target audience of Lego as well. So you know.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. But that's so cool. Yeah, awesome. Wow, I loved what you were saying, Maddie, about the quilting community being like, we're a dwindling, dying community. It's almost, I don't want to say comical, that's not the right term, but it's so interesting that they too are having that same problem that we are. Of like, but what if the community dies? And yet it's with quilting and cloth. You can literally buy that in the store at any time, right? It's interesting taking it out of the context of Bionicle and just being like, that's why I said comical before. It's kind of like, it's interesting when you word it like that. Because it's that too, like going back to the kid thing of like, you buy a bulk lot, it's decently likely that there'll be a bunch of Bionicle pieces in there. And it's not like the kids are going to go, oh, that's not real Lego, mother. I'm playing with the system. They're going to be like, ooh, look at this.
Mother.
You know? Yeah. Like, for example, at my uni at the moment, my university, there is it's outside, which confuses me. There's this little table of Lego sitting outside near one of the classes. And I was looking at it and I was like, oh my God, there's Lego here. Like, what? And I was just looking at the pieces and I was like, whoa. And this lady comes up, she's like, yeah, it's for everyone to play with. And I was like, cool. And then I was just messing around with the parts. And then I was seeing there was like some G2 Bionicle pieces in there. And yet those had been assembled and played with. And yet not much else had been. And I was like, see, even the uni kids, even the kids my age and possibly a little bit younger, they like the Bionicle. They want to play with it.
They know what's up.
They know what's up. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for like accessibility, especially like.
Oh yeah.
I know that's always been a conversation in the Bionicle community itself between, especially with the cancellation of G1 and the beginning of G2, where there's always been that lore versus mock group. And then even in mocks, there's always been those people who are like, I have an entirely very deep and detailed story, and all of my mock posts have a 30-paragraph story description to go along with them.
Ooh,
And
excuse me. Sorry.
And that's super cool, and putting that much work and thought into something is super cool. But at the same time, for people who are outside the hobby, that's super inaccessible. And I think I just think like I'm all about like people building and enjoying and, you know, write a cool fan fiction. But like at the same time, if you write a 30-paragraph description and then you're upset that your mock isn't getting as much views as a mock that has like 3 sentences, I think there's a point where you have to stop and think and be like, okay, what am I doing to shut the door on people who are interested but afraid?
I get you. It's interesting because my local lug, not really anyone likes Bionicle there. Like, I literally had someone, he posted a thing online on our Facebook buy and sell page, and he goes, selling lesser Lego, and he had all this Bionicle, and I was like, you scum. And it was like,
rude.
Yeah, right? That's what I thought.
Yeah, very unfriendly.
Yeah. And it was $20 for like a lot of what was about $80 worth of Bionicle. So I got it. And when he gave it to me, he's like, here's your lesser Lego. And I was like, here's my superior Lego, actually. And yeah, I like got a good amount of pieces out of it, kind of thing. And then as I was looking through it and all that, this guy came up to me and he's like, so can you talk to me about Bionicle? Like, why is it so popular? Because I never got it. And I was like, that's an awesome question. And I said, my answer to it was, one, I just like the play system. That's what got me into it as a kid. I was just like, it's cool. The socket ball connections and stuff is fun. Like, it's just fun to play with. But then my second response was, I loved the lore. Like, I remember when I bought Gully Mutta and I was reading the little pamphlet all about Mutanui and the Toa and da-da-da. I was drooling over it. It was amazing. And the art that went with it was great too. It was brilliant. And I was like, I think it's the story. And then he goes, is that what Ninjago is now? Because I was like, Ninjago is kind of the modern Bionicle to some degree. And
Well, that most recent season of the show, I was just like, I'm an emotional wreck. I'm so deep into this.
Yes. And because that's what I was saying to Mum, because he's like, I also don't get why Ninjago is so popular right now, and I was like, well, I think it's a very similar story of Bionicle. Like, people are super into the lore, and I'm sure you'd be able to answer this, Patrick. There was that statistic that Lego released not long ago at some convention where it was like, here are our top selling things, and I'm pretty sure Ninjago was the top of the list, wasn't it? Or at least top 3.
It is the top list. It's their single best-selling non-city theme of all time.
Better selling than Star Wars. Better selling than freaking Marvel and DC sets as well.
When they canceled Ninjago after its original like few-year run, and they put all of their like money, they're like, all right, Chima will be the next Ninjago.
Nope.
The thing that they didn't count on, like people, like Bionicle fans like to be like, oh my god, we made such a big stink and we kept the community alive long enough that they gave us a G2.
Yeah.
It took them, what, 5 years to give us G2?
Yes.
Ninjago, they got so many phone calls from parents who were angry that they had canceled Ninjago that they had to hire a second call center's worth of employees at Lego to staff just the Ninjago calls. And then on top of that, they had to scramble to be like, all right, it's coming back. We need to divert funds and designers and money, and this needs to happen now.
That's incredibly cool. Wow.
It really is.
Wow.
I mean, there's a reason it's described in like internal stuff now as an evergreen theme. Like the plan is just for it to continue to go on until there's no reason for it to continue to go on. Yeah. And I think, I mean, like I said, I think there's a thing to like to be saying the story, because I mean, I know almost every minute detail there is to know about Bionicle G1.
Yeah.
Like, I also love it. But I think there comes to a point where if you're not consistently closing chapters and creating jumping on points, which Bionicle G1 wasn't very good at, even though it tried, there just becomes this point where people are like, this is too much for me to get into, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, I get you. That makes sense.
And I think I mean, we're 100% correct that it's the story that got so much of Bionicle and Ninjago so big and so popular. But at the same time, you look back on those first few years of Bionicle, and even Ninjago, which is character-driven, but it doesn't have those things where you're like, what is the name of Lloyd's sword, and who owned it before him, and how many other ninjas were there 100 years ago, and like all those deep questions that we were consistently and constantly asking Greg about on BZ Power about Bionicle. Like, there's a point where the lore is deep, and there's a point where the lore is big, and those are not always the same. And I think Bionicle's lore was big, but it was shallow, and Ninjago's is small but deep and targeted.
Yeah, I get you. That's cool. Yeah, interesting. Does Greg work on the story for that? Because I know he worked on the story for Nexo Knights.
I honestly don't know. Yeah,
that's a good question.
So I think he's still the manager of the Lego magazine.
I don't know.
That's been his main title this whole time.
Cool. You don't get the Lego magazine anymore.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
Yeah, because the whole time he was writing books on the side for Bionicle and doing Bionicle stuff as part of the story team, he was also the like manager of the Lego magazine.
Manager of the what? Sorry, you cut out there for a sec.
Oh, the Lego magazine.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. That's cool though. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting drawing those parallels between the two, isn't it? That's super cool. Awesome.
It is. I mean, Matt and I watched the Ninjago show. Most of the sets on display in our apartment are Ninjago sets.
I saw you had
and Bionicle sets.
Yes, awesome. I saw you bought Ninjago City the other day.
Yeah, I got Ninjago City while Cascade was going on, and I was able to pick it up at a discount, and I was like, well, I'm never gonna be able to get it this cheap ever again, and so I was like, well, it's now or never.
Fair.
So
that box is massive.
The box is very large.
Yeah. My dad bought it for me in America, and because he'll fly here and back during Christmas, and so he'll bring Lego that he's bought over there. And there was one Christmas he was coming over, and he was like, what do you want me to bring over? And he'd sent me pictures and stuff, and I was kind of like, this and this and this, and then I was like, oh, actually, could you bring Ninjago City too? That'd be awesome. And he's like, no. And I was like, oh, sorry, I'm sorry, was that offensive? I don't understand. And he's like, no, Ben, it would take an entire suitcase to bring back. Like, I can't do that. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, the thing is huge.
It is very huge. It's a very cool set, though.
I was talking to a few people about the set. It was fun talking to LJ about it. I didn't realize all the Bionicle references I hadn't even noticed in there. So cool. But the Ninjago docks, how it has a little map of Motunui on it. I was talking to someone at my lug about parts drafts and stuff, and I was saying, would anyone be keen to buy Ninjago docks? And we go like halvesies on it, and we just split the parts in half and give them, to each other. But we obviously select the parts that we want specifically. And this one other guy's like, yeah, I'd be keen on that. And I was like, okay, one thing though, if we buy that, dibs on the stickers. And he's like, sure, why not? And I was like, you don't realize what I've gained. I gained a map of Motunui sticker. And he's like, well, I'm going to dibs all the trans blue tiles, which is something like, I don't know, probably 100 or so of them. And I was like, you may have won in this regard, but I get a map of Motunui. So who's the real winner here? Me.
God, those trans blue tiles, though.
Yeah, there's such good parts. Oh, can't wait to get some more of those.
So many of them.
There are so many in them. You were just like, why are there so many?
I am having so much fun talking to you, but I also realize this is the Biz podcast and we haven't spoken about a mock at all. We have not. Do you want to begin with, do you have a preference on anyone you want to talk about, or do you want to just start with Cameron's one?
We'll talk about Cameron's, that's fine.
Yeah, cool. I have one question before we start. Why aren't Maddie's mocks in your selection?
Madison builds system mocks. I will happily put a link in the description, like in the comment section of this video, with a link to her Flickr, because she's built some amazing, amazing things.
Heck yeah, I'm keen to see it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, she built a shoe for Nike that was how many feet long, Maddie?
2.5?
Yeah.
It was very large.
You built a shoe for Nike? We're not talking about a mock. Talk to me about this Nike shoe you built for Nike. What?
Okay. So Portland has a lug called Portlug.
Yeah.
And I was at Burke Fair, Virginia, and one of the guys, I think, emailed me, one of the other guys in Portlug, being like, hey, I need to talk to you. Like, can't really tell you why, but I need to talk to you about a potential mock thing, like opportunity. And I was like, okay, like, sure. And like, I send him my number, and he calls me and is like, all right, so like, this is what's going down. And apparently, because there is a Nike project called Nike Dornbecker, okay. And Dornbecker is a children's hospital here in Portland. Huh. And every year they do this humongous fundraiser for them, where they have like 6 kids, and those 6 kids get to design their own Nike shoe, essentially however they want.
Cool. And
then they also make like shirts and other clothing for like based off of it. And then they have this humongous auction, and all of the money that is like made from those shoes and the merchandise and from the auction goes to the Dornbecker Hospital. And it's like this, they've been doing it for like a while, like not 2 decades quite yet, but I feel like they're coming up on it.
Well, those Dornbecker shoes are also
some
of the like most wanted
and they're like
shoes.
Yeah, nice. Like sneakerheads just go crazy for it because they'll go out and be like, oh, like, hey kid who's designing this, like, who's your favorite like Nike athlete? And they'll be like, oh, like so and so this guy. And they'll like get that person to sign them, and then they'll auction those off, and it'll just, go for just a ton of money.
That's really cool.
Anyway, apparently the Nike Dornbecker people every year they do a like thank you gift for the kids for participating in it, because even though these kids are doing this really cool like Nike opportunity, there's still kids going through like a really rare form of cancer or some like really awful disease or surgeries, and they're like, we want to make a like thank you for them for this. And apparently the Nike Dornbecker people went to our Lego store and we're like, hey, do you guys do commissions? And they were like, no, we're a Lego store, we sell it. But here's Portlug. They have a bunch of people who make mocks, like they're just fans, so maybe contact them, they'll like be able to help you. So they contacted them, and Portlug was like, I mean, we probably have somebody. And I guess somebody was like, well, Madison's made some like Lego shoes before. And I had, because apparently I like to build Lego shoes. I don't know why.
Probably because you were a track athlete.
Oh, yeah, probably the track athlete thing. But like I had made one that was in Runner's World, which is a running magazine if you couldn't tell from the title. And then the Runner's World in Germany actually featured mine for a spread about how shoes are made. And so it just had this like my shoe just across 2 pages. It was so weird. It was really neat. And so they like Portlug contacted me and they were like, they want to build a giant version of this kid's shoe that he designed, and we want to make a Lego version because he loves Lego. Like, if he could have made the like whole design of the shoe like official Lego, like we would have done it because that's how much he loves Lego. And so I like go in and I'm just like, what is happening? Like, this is the strangest thing to be like going down for me right now because like I've never like done a commission for somebody like this. And they were like, yeah, like, here's the shoe. Like, you can take this home to look at it and, like, figure out how you're going to design this. And I was like, what's our budget? And they were just like, whatever. And I'm like, you have a different understanding of money than me. Like, what do you, okay. And we ended up settling on, I did a digital, like, version of the shoe in Digital Designer.
I think so.
Yeah. And being like, all right, like here it is. I like got the estimate of the parts I would need. I had to go to Nike's headquarters, which is in Beaverton, Oregon, which is like right next to Portland. And we sat there, and the guy who was like my contact, we had to sit there and use his like corporate credit card to order all the parts off of Bricklink, which was very strange to suddenly have like $500 worth of Lego bricks coming to my apartment. It was so weird. And then I built it and I glued it all together because they were like, make it permanent. Like, we don't want this thing falling apart. And then I delivered it to him. And then I found a video of the auction night because they gave the kid the shoe that night. And he the look on his face, he's just like, what? Like, oh my God. Like, because it's just like, imagine like a standard like athletic shoe. And then multiply it by 3, and then also add a brick, and it was just like it was so cool. Crazy. Yeah, and that's how I built a shoe for Nike.
Fantastic! Wow,
it was pretty neat. Yeah,
this is so cool. Like we were saying, like on the news, building for Nike. Just look at this! Look at the stuff that our little hobby does. This is cool. We're all going places. This is awesome.
Pretty neat.
That's so rad.
Mm-hmm.
So Cameron.
Yeah.
I do love me some Cameron.
So this is a mock by Cameron called Horek. How would you pronounce it?
I would
sorry, that was not the button I meant to press.
I would pronounce it
A-Rock?
Yeah, probably A-Rock.
You're probably
A-Rock.
right. I very rarely pronounce things correctly.
Very Bionicle-y.
Yeah.
A-Rock.
It's the precursor to the B-Borok.
Just gargle.
Yeah.
Baborok.
Cool. So what made you pick this one, Mr. Patrick? Or Mr. Biggs?
I mean, this is a mock I got to see in person a couple weeks ago at Bricks Cascade.
Oh, cool.
And Cameron did actually a live stream on his Instagram story of him like starting this build like the day before the contest deadline that he entered it in.
Nice.
But it's just, this is so dumb, but it's just so cool. Like, I look at it and it's so dramatically different from the way that I build and perceive parts. And it has this really, really neat, like, industrial, like you could see this as a worker drone in a, like, sci-fi, like, industrial fantasy factory. Like, it's just the use of just the yellow and the blue and just those little splashes gives it just this incredibly engineered look to it. That I look at it and I'm just like, how does your mind work like this?
Yeah.
Explain, Cameron. Cameron, explain.
It's way bigger in person than you think when you look at this in the picture. Because you're like, oh yeah, it's a little Bionicle spider. It's got 4 legs. It's a Bionicle spider.
Yeah.
And then you look at it in person, and it's pretty well sized. I mean, you think those little like invasion from below claws used on the bottoms of the feet, and then the mandibles there are, those alone are like 3 inches long. So this thing's pretty well sized.
Yeah.
But it's dripping with this like sense of like character and this like industrial design, and like I love it.
Yeah.
And I want it.
Yeah, that's cool, isn't it? One thing I love, because you were saying like all these like pistons and things, the fact that he's used this blue pneumatic air tube thing at the back there. I can't remember what that does. I just remember I had one, and one of my AFOL friends at the time was like, "Do you need that? Because I need that." And like, you could do so many cool pneumatic things with that. I need it. And I was like, I'm not even going to use it. Yeah, you take it. And they were like, oh. And yeah, I don't even know what they did with it, but they were so excited about it. But I love the kind of link that has between the fact that it also has those pneumatic pistons on the legs there. So it kind of implies that, there is a sort of pneumatic function behind it, that, you pump the air in and the legs would move and stuff like that. Even though the way the MOC is built, obviously that isn't actually how it works. But just because he's used those pieces, it looks like it would.
The legs do actually move though with the piston functions. Like,
oh, for real?
Those are functional pistons.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Like, yeah, it's one of those things that he was talking about, how he wished that he was able to show off better, but like there is a range of motion in those legs because of the pistons.
Oh, awesome.
And it's just incredible. Like, something about it, like I look at it and it just has this like such a strong sense of concept behind it.
Yes.
That it just I don't even know what else to say about it besides the fact that it's so vibrant and alive, but it looks so engineered and so purposeful.
Yes.
And it just is not how my brain looks at parts at all.
That's super cool. Yeah, I love it. I love the eyes that he's done on it, just using those new... It's like a stud, then it has the lightsaber rod coming out of the stud. Just like how that's connected.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's such a simple design, but it looks so cool. And I don't know, there's something about when people use new pieces in cool ways, even if it's a little bit more simplistic. I love it. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. What are your... go on, Matt. I was about to ask you, what are your thoughts, Maddie?
Maddie, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm sorry. My beer finally hit me. I don't know. I've never actually seen this until now. I was not prepared for this question. Because my brain right now is like, oh, I like that it has a squirt gun with a tank on the back of it. And also it looks like it's wearing thigh-high boots that are very pointy. It's very fashion. So yeah, I'm not going to have much to contribute to that.
I mean, those are fair points, though.
Those are not actually... I can hear my professors in college being like, that's not a valid critique.
I don't know. The fact that it has thigh-high boots makes this MOC a lot cooler. I want to see that now. Like a traditional spider built with Lego that has like bright red thigh-high high heel boots on all 8 legs. No, only on 7 legs. Like, there's one that it's not. And we're like, why is that? I'm like, oh, figure that out. I want to see that. I see that, MOC. That's cool. I love your points. Thank you. Perfect.
You're welcome.
But it is cool. I agree with you. I like all the swords on the back of the tank there. Yeah, I think that's an interesting way of kind of just adding a bit more to that tank. Kind of just jutting it out a bit more and kind of tying it in with the rest. Because obviously that blue is a bit more of a difference in color on the MOC, but it's nice having that additional accent color on there and stuff. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that little bit of blue and that yellow just pop, and it looks lovely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I know I've seen some people who are like, build something other than a black MOC, but the color scheme of black and any other color like never fails to look beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's 100% true. I think all of the MOCs we're going to talk about today are examples of that.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Super cool. I'm kind of the same as you, how you were saying a minute ago. You're like, I don't even know where else to go with this, but it's just super cool and I love it. I'm the same. I don't know what else to say, but it's awesome. Yeah, it amazes me too. I say that and then I immediately get something else to say. Thank you, brain. I love how he's used the same, those larger claw pieces. I don't know what you call those. But those larger claw pieces on each individual tip of the leg. but then also using it as like the mandibles on the spider's mouth, and how like it's the same part, and kind of logically in my head I go, you should probably use a different piece because it might look a bit confusing, like, oh, those an additional pair of legs, but kind of adding that little claw bit at the bottom of them, and I don't know, just how he's attached them, I guess. It's very noticeably different, and it's not confusing at all, and it's just cool how he's used the same piece, but in a surprisingly drastically different way, even though it's very similar. I don't know, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Super cool. Cameron's a good guy.
He's a great guy.
He's pretty neat.
I need to share that, I don't know if you remember it. Do you remember that commercial I made with Cameron?
Yes. Yes, I do.
If I remember in editing to throw it into the video, I will, because I only shared that with you and a few other people, but I never actually posted that, so I'll have to.
Welcome to Primus's Prime Moose Meat. Back when he was just a little boy, Primus himself saw Martha the Moose, and he said,
Oh God, I'm gonna butcher this.
and thus Primus's Prime Moose Meats was born. We offer only the finest quality moose meats, selling at least 1,000 pounds a day.
Yeah, I would say 1,000 is pushing it.
Well, Primus, tell everyone about our patented meat packaging techniques. We use respect, love, and we also,
Use like illegal techniques and stuff like that.
our grand opening sale starts this Thursday at 10 p.m. So be sure to come on down and get some Primus's Prime Moose Meat. We'll be happy to serve, and we'll have lots of meat ready, fresh for you. Isn't that right, Primus?
I don't know how much in the realm of possibility it is.
Oh, come on, dude. I'm just trying to promote your services. At least pretend that you care. You know what? I give up. No, let's just play the outro.
Primus's Prime Moose Meat.
I want to see some food.
I have a Mitch one planned. In the last podcast I did with him, he said one thing, and it was the same reason I did the Coke guy video with you. I just heard you say that, and I was like, that's funny, and then made a video out of it, or something Mitch said, and I was like, that's hilarious. I'm gonna make a video out of that. I still need to do it. I haven't yet, but I have it all mapped out in my head. I just need to put it on paper and make it a video.
Love it.
Any final thoughts on this, or any interesting parallels to draw between high heels and spiders from you there, Maddie? Or do we want to move on to the next one?
No. Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. All right. So, we'll go Patrick's mock now. So this is a mock by Patrick Biggs, and is it actually called Welcome Aboard the Flying Skies? Oh no, his name is Captain Salvador.
Yes, Captain Salvador. And then the name of the presentation is Welcome Aboard the Friendly
I
Skies.
said Flying Skies just then. Yeah, perfect. Talk to us about this mock.
Well, I built this mock specifically for the Brickset character building contest they hosted in order to win a Bionicle art book. I did indeed do
Nice.
that. It did win.
Hooray.
Yes, it was very exciting because the art book is fantastic.
Oh, it's so pretty.
But we talked last time about how I'd been experimenting with more realistic like attire, like more clothing oriented and less of the traditional like Bionicle armor style looks.
I believe the term is coat guys.
Yes, we talked a lot about the coat guys last time.
Yes.
And I really wanted to see what else there was with that look without using the same parts again.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
And so instead of the Chima feathers, which I still enjoy,
Mhm.
I was like, how do I make this look more like a full like deep coat? Like, and I wasn't entirely sure where I was going with it when I started it.
Mhm.
And then like probably about a halfway through, I was like, I kind of really want to build a sky pirate. And then I was like, what if I went really, really, really like Studio Ghibli, really Castle in the Sky, and just like full on like steampunk fantasy sky pirate? And the more I filled in the jacket, because this is one where a lot of times I'll start with a head, and this one I started with the actual jacket core.
Okay.
And filling in the back of that jacket after I had built the long front ends using the Extra Force bad guy robot arms, and quite an adventure. But it was it was very, very fun. And it was one of those things where I was like, how can I get basically build a new character who you look at it and immediately you go, yes, that is indeed a like fantasy themed sky pirate who lives in a steampunk world. And that's in a little mini ship because I thought that was fun. But that was just extremely last minute. I was like, what if he had a little like example of a ship there in front of him? But I really wanted to do like with each of the coats before, it was how can I use a similar design to emphasize a different style of coat? And I got to a point where I was like, well, I've done like 4 of these that look pretty similar, like coattail wise. And while they all look like a different thing, like where else can this go? Like how much further can we push it? And where else? Like where's the line? And so this one I wanted very strongly to have a more sweeping look. I wanted to have a fuller look. And I really, really, really wanted to use those blue flex tubes that I bought on Bricklink. Because I've never actually owned blue ones before.
Oh yeah.
And I loved the way they looked, just as the only real like classic blue color in there. And like I said, I really wanted to make him look like he's actually wearing clothing.
Yeah.
And so, which I think mostly succeeded. I built the head, and I was like, I really wanted it to look like an old like leather flying cap with goggles. I got some black sausages in an order from the internet, and I was like, well, I need to use these somewhere in there. And so they're little like flaps hanging off the sides. It just came together in such a way that it felt very organic, and it felt very much like this is the character almost asserting himself in the build. I know a lot of writers will talk about writing a character and they get to a point where they're like, the character is telling me that they would not do the thing that my plot line had them do. And we're like almost like a meta version of the character kind of comes to life as you shape it, and it almost guides the story itself. And in a lot of ways, I've been trying to focus a lot on building characters that you can look at and just the story, like a story for it is shown immediately in your mind's eye. And so you don't have to pore over all of the long details. You don't have to go, well, this is interesting, but what is it? Like, I don't want to build a mock where you have to spend, 10 minutes poring over every accessory, every small, tiny section of it just to go, okay, but what is it? I want you to be able to look at it and go, this is this thing, like this is this character, this is their job, or this is their livelihood, or this is who they are in the presentation, which is probably a little bit based off my history of doing portrait photography as well on the side. But I just want people to be able to see it and go, here it is, here he is, and then he's gesturing like, oh, here I am. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, that's an awesome way of looking at building a character like that. I really, really like that, and I think you definitely achieved that too, which I think is awesome. I love how, like you were saying, just the way that the coat's designed all around those flex tubes and stuff. I think it's because I remember the last podcast you were saying that you wanted to really focus on finding new ways of approaching that coat design. Because you'd used it in a few mocks, and each time it was a little different or sort of subtly the same, but you were finding all different ways that you can explore it and play with it. And I think this here is a massive departure from the original, but still has subtle nods to it, but also has a lot of is very much a really unique take on it. And so I definitely think you achieved in that kind of goal that you'd set for yourself there of finding new ways of doing it, because this is a very, very different way, and it's so unique and different. And I definitely don't think you could have got to this have you not done a lot of the other coat stuff you've done before, which is really cool to note. I like that.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think I think we even talked about this last time, but there are always people who are like, oh, everything you build needs to be completely different than the last thing you built. And that's never been the way my building works. It's never been the way my brain works. I usually find a design that I like, or like a core idea that I like, and I'll run with it until it subtly changes itself. And I just think there's something so strong in like discovering iterations and moving everything forward and seeing what else a thing can be. Because it just feels so wasteful to me to be like, this is a really great idea, and I'm glad that I had it that one time and never got to use it again.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially because you don't even know if you hit the full potential of it. And that's one of those things for me is I always want to see what the potential behind something really is before I can say, yes, I'm happy. I mean, I'm happy with all the things that I built, especially in the last couple of years. But there's always just this point where you're like, all right, cool, I did that with that one, but what else could I do with that? And where else could I take that? And how else could I use the same bones for that and dress it up so differently that you're like, wow, that's based off the same idea?
Totally. And I think that's really, really good advice to that degree of because like you were saying that people are saying, oh, what you have to build has to be vastly different. Da, da, da. And like to some degree, I don't disagree with that, but I also do disagree with that. I think that's one pathway you can take if you want, sure, but you can easily take this other pathway. And like we've seen with your mock here, there's a lot of merit to doing that because you go down that iterative path and you find stuff that you wouldn't have found had you not done that. And to some degree, you're cultivating a style of your own, and you're cultivating a unique idea to some degree. Yeah. You're cultivating your own kind of style, system, or way of building, and you're refining it and making it even better and even cooler. Which is a brilliant idea to do. You know, it's that whole thing of I guess, practice makes perfect, and you kept practicing it and you expand it and you changed it in new ways and you got something really unique and really different. And it'd be even more interesting to see.
Well, I'm glad it only took me. I'm glad it only took me 17 years to find my own style.
But see, you found it. That's all that matters. Yeah. And it's that too. I'd be very interested to see the next coat guy, and where the direction that takes, because I imagine it'll be vastly different, or it could be very similar but only slightly tweaked, and then the next coat guy will be even more different, unique and interesting, and we'll go down all these different avenues. It'll be great.
Maybe a coat guy gal.
Well, oh, now you're thinking. There you go. That'd be great. Yeah.
They have all been coat guys so far. Need to branch out.
That's right. Yeah. I like because I did that whole episode on mocks with stands, and I had one of your mocks in there. I love seeing stands with mocks, and it was like you were saying of you wanted to communicate that specific. You wanted to communicate a character and not have people have to read something else or stare at it for too long. They instantly know what it is, and having that stand, very effectively does that so much. Like, I think that if he was away, like if you hadn't built the stand, you just had him on his own, to some degree he would still communicate who he is, but so much more is conveyed when you have that stand and the little airship as well. So it does so much for it, and it very much depends on your style. You know, some people just want to build whatever they build and don't necessarily have that goal like you had. But you know, if you want to go down that route of more character focused characters, which that's certainly one thing I've noticed on Biss, is a lot of the really really standout mocks are the ones that do that are very character driven or very very much convey character. And that's why I did that episode with stands, is to have it be very because that is a way to kind of really branch out in a new direction, is to focus on character, and stands like drastically help with that. So I think that was a really really smart addition to do that, especially for the look that you were after. I think this is really cool.
They also stand at conventions a lot easier because they're all actually physically connected to the base.
I hadn't thought of that. That would help a lot. That's smart. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, so each of the bases, for the most part, almost all of them have instead of being smooth all the way over, underneath each foot, one of the areas isn't tiled the same way, and there's one stud sticking up, and that stud is connected to the bottom of the foot.
Smart. Cool. Mm-hmm. This is a good way of doing it. Because I had that problem at Brickvention. I brought 3 mocks, and 2 of them stood really well, but one just kept falling over. And that's because we don't have guardrails around the table so kids can go all the way up. It's not like they were pushing it over, it's just they would keep bumping the table, and then they just would keep falling.
Yep, and then they shake and they fall.
Yeah, exactly that. So, the stands is a great idea. Yeah, especially for conventions. That's super smart. Yeah. Definitely. Does Brick Fair Virginia have kind of rails around the mock or anything, or is it?
Yeah, I think
doesn't Brick Fair own their own stanchions now?
Yeah, Brick Fair owns their own stanchions. I don't think I've ever been to a North American convention that didn't have some sort of stanchion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Interesting. It's funny because here in Perth at our convention we have, what were you calling them? Stanchions?
What
were you calling them? Stanchions?
Stanchions?
Yeah, it's like the poles with like either the chain in between or another pole in between. Yeah, we call them stanchions.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Or
Because we kind of call them like bollards here, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's just a cultural thing. But okay. Yeah, I've never
That's
heard that
okay.
term before. Yeah, of course, totally fine. But I was just learning a new word. But we always have them at pretty much every convention I've been to except Brickvention. And it's super funny, like seeing when people take pictures at Brickvention, like people in Perth will freak out and they'll be like, "You don't have guardrails around your mocks? What do you do?" And like I remember like my first year at Brickvention, it was a little bit like, "Don't touch my mock," like and now it's just like, whatever. Like as long as you don't steal anything, you're good. You know, and but it's just interesting how people like freak out and it's like, yeah, it's okay, you know. But yeah, that's it's interesting. It's always interesting the differences between conventions and stuff like that. It's cool. But yeah, smart to build stands because things kind of need to be convention proof. I guess you don't necessarily think about that when you're making stuff at home.
Well, it gives them, like you said, I mean, it gives them a little bit of an atmosphere. Like it lets them breathe just a little bit more. Like
For sure.
it puts them in just a little bit more of an environment that you're like, and then you're like, yeah, it's a stand. It's just like an action figure that comes with a stand. You're like, it's not actually like a portion of the environment they live on, but it's just this little environment that creates, like, it just adds to the character. Or, you know, if you've got a headless horseman guy on a bicycle, it lets the bicycle stand up.
For sure, yes. That's very important. Yeah, definitely. Anything else you wanted to talk about on this guy? Because I've barely spoken about this guy now that I think about it. I love the goggles that you did on that, using those ties and stuff like that there. And then the beard is kind of like facial hair.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah. You've covered most of the things I wanted to cover on this guy. So, for the most part, you did a fantastic job. And I remember saying this to you when you posted it. Like 2 days before you posted this, I posted my top 10 of 2018 Bionicle Mox video. And then you go and post this, and I'm like, Patrick, this would have been in that video. Why didn't you post it sooner? Yeah.
I hadn't finished it yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's cool, man. You did a good job.
Thank you.
But yeah, sorry. Anything else you want to say on this? Because I've pretty much said all I wanted to. You did a good job. Any other final thoughts?
I mean, I feel like we talked about it a lot.
Cool.
I mean, I feel like I could talk about my mocks for all day, but let's talk about other people's mocks.
Yeah, let's talk about some guy named Joxon, and his mock, which is. How about you pronounce this one? 'Cause you and Maddie were great at pronouncing.
You know, it's Admiral de Thessania.
That's the one. I was gonna say that. I wasn't. So, what made you pick this guy? This Bug General's awesome.
I loved this mock. When Yorde started it, he definitely was joking that he was going to build a coat guy, and then he didn't. So part of me is kind of upset that he didn't, because I still want to see what he would do with it.
Me too, yeah.
But really, for me, the thing is this is, like, we talked about character, and we talk about builds that just showcase, like, a sense of life to them, that you look at it and you're like, yes, this is indeed a cartoonish sci-fi admiral from some sort of, like, and honestly, it looks like it'd be a cartoon villain, and I love it. I love the way the proportions work in. I love how it's really not that complex visually. It's not necessarily built with 1,000 parts put together. It's simple. It's smart. Every piece has a very specific purpose and a very specific use and a very specific look. The whole thing comes together to just create this. Like I said, it just looks like an evil cartoon villain from a 90s cartoon show, and
it does.
Everything about that just speaks deep into my soul.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I mean, he just looks so alive, and the antenna, just the wings, the pieces from that Ninjago ship wrapped around at the top, everything about it is so purposeful and so thought out and so exactly where it needs to be to create exactly what it wants to be. And it's so dramatic. And I mean
it is, yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anybody in the community who's as good at building straight up characters as Yorde is.
Yes.
And I feel like when we got to this point where I knew that we were going to talk a lot about character design and about breathing life into something, there was just nobody else who I could talk about besides Yorde.
100%, yeah. What you were saying too about like how to some degree it is a bit more kind of simplistic in design, but yet every piece is in there deliberately for a very specific purpose. It's that, like, because you're saying it's cartoon character. You can look at some cartoon characters, and more or less they can be stick figures. Like their arm can just be a black line, but yet they can still be so lifelike and have so much of a personality to them. And to some degree, that's kind of like what these like lower legs are. Like it's just those 4 cone pieces there, but yet that kind of texture that gives looks kind of bug-like, and because he is this sort of more spiddly character, it gives him more personality, makes him look more fun and funny. It's perfect, yeah. One thing I love is the elbow connection. He uses those. They come from an old like underwater theme. I don't know the specific name of them, but he used those funky bendy arm pieces that I was speaking to Mitch about those pieces in the last podcast. He's used those just to have that kind of one stud long arm there, but then it also has that posability. And those pieces are a bit rarer and a bit more kind of fragile. But it's just super cool seeing those being used on a mock like this and how effective that is at making that spiddly arm design, but also having it be posable. And I think Joxon's brilliant at that because he'll do very spiddly designs like this, and yet it still has so much life to it and stuff. And it's like, man, you're only using such a small area that you can build off of, and yet you're achieving so much out of it. It's really cool.
I mean, it's like I said, I just don't think that there's anybody in the community who is as good at conveying like life the way that he is.
That's cool. Yes, I agree with you. That's perfect. Perfect way of wording it.
I mean, there's definitely a reason that when Lego was like, yes, round 1 of the Lego House mock builders, he was the first construction builder in there.
Yeah, definitely. There must be some correlation there for sure. Exactly that. But then you could say the same. Be like, why'd they contact Patrick Biggs next? One thing I love about the head on this guy is using the Anika Motoro head for that. People just stray away from those pieces like so much, and yet seeing it used here, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of potential in these pieces actually. I think that's awesome. Because I always look at them, I go, those heads are a bit weird. I don't use them. I don't want to use them. But yet they're like here, it looks brilliant.
Yeah, I mean he does that all the time too. Where you're like, I've never even thought about using that piece. It's in the bin of pieces that is like, why does this exist?
Yeah.
And then he's like, this is why.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% what he does. Like the way that Joxon will use masks or obscure pieces and stuff like that and be like, this is a head. And you're like, no, it's not Joxon. And then he makes it and you're like, oh, no, it was. Okay.
It was a head the whole time.
That's right. When Lego made it, that was the intent. They're like, we'll use it as a foot for now, but one day. And then they cancelled Bionicle and they're like, Joxon will do it.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I just look at it. It's so impressive. I just look at it and I'm like, it's so alive. Like yes. I just picture it, this cartoonish background, just commanding this army, or even just being like, you've won this time, but I'll get you next time.
You took the last bagel, Sharon, for the last time.
Damn it, Sharon.
We watched Spider-Man the other day. So got bagels on the mind.
I always have bagels on the mind because they're delicious.
Yes, awesome. Perfect. I 100% agree with everything you've said there, my man. Maddie, what do you think? Do you like them?
Yes. The cartoonish proportions are delightful. And I don't know what this the shoulder piece is. Is that a flexible piece?
Yes, it's from that
it's great.
Not the Destiny's Bounty, but the small ship that has the canoes on the side that Lloyd's mom makes him.
Yes.
And he's like, yes, I've got it in the bedroom.
He didn't skip thigh day, but he definitely skipped the other part of leg day.
Yeah.
But it's great.
Yeah.
Might need a haircut.
Perfect. You guys have repeated everything that I would have said about this mock. So, GG, well done. I think we've covered those 3 perfectly well. I love what all of them have done. Excellent work. So we had some questions to answer from the audience that people submitted. An hour 30 into the podcast, but who cares? We're going to keep talking because I'm having a fun time. Yeah. And plus, when I edit it down, it'll be more like 120. So we're good. Where are the questions? They're in the chat somewhere, but I scrolled up too far. All right. First question we have is by Mitch Henry. And the question he asks is, what is the most recent Lego set that you bought, and would you recommend it for anyone else? So, Patrick and Maddie, unless you guys both bought the same set with the same amount of money, which, like, that's a cop-out answer, but what were the sets that you guys bought, and would you recommend them?
So the last set that I bought is the Dragon Dance Brickhead, but I haven't built it yet. So we're going to go back one more.
Okay.
The last set that I bought and built was Ninjago City.
Yes, yeah.
And yes, I definitely recommend it. I've never been so happy and angry at a Lego set in my entire life.
Honestly, you're just like, are you for real, Nick? How did you get away with this? Like, how did you manage to do this little technique and pull it? Like, ugh.
There are so many parts of that set that while I was building it, I was like, are you, like, as I was like, are you for real right now? Like, you took a crowbar and said, I know,
Right.
13 of these together is a roof.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, it's a fun build. I spread it out over the course of a week where I just worked on it for like an hour at night.
Me too, yeah.
And just like while we watched TV or a movie and just like relaxed and just enjoyed myself and built it, like section by section. But if anybody ever wants to get into system building and you've got a good chunk of money that you're just like, I don't care about this and I'm going to spend it on a Lego set.
Yeah.
Ninjago City is definitely the one to do it on because there's so many cool techniques and ideas, and it's this amazing visual like novel of a set that just like it's a setting, but the setting tells this incredible story. And again, though, it's just full of the most incredible building techniques.
It is.
And people talk all the time about how like Lego should listen more to mock builders when they build sets, and this is one of those sets that mock builders should listen more to set designers when they build mocks with.
I would agree with that, actually. 100%. Yeah, man. I just had the funniest image when you were like, are you for real, Nick? Like, I just picture you, like, getting to the bit in the
He was just, like, building, and then all of a sudden he would just, like, sigh and just be like, Nick, how did you do this?
And I know that
this isn't legal.
I know that there's another designer who worked on the set who wasn't just Nick.
But we're blaming Nick. Yeah.
But
we're still blaming Nick, yeah.
But Nick's been my friend for a long time.
Yeah.
And so Nick gets the blame for all the cool things in it that made me so angry.
Yes.
It's just a fantastic set. It's everything that I wanted it to be and then some. It's fantastic.
Yes, I agree with you.
Master, what's the last Lego set that you got?
I'm trying to think, and I'm like,
What's the last one you built?
Oh, I don't even know.
Was it the bank?
It might have been the bank. I feel like the last thing I might have bought might have been like Minecraft related. Not the Alex one, but I don't know.
I bought that, and you haven't built it yet.
I don't know. I can't remember. I bought a bunch of windows at Bricks and Minifigs. Does that count as a set?
No, those are parts.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be the last one you built. Then, what is a set that you have bought at some point in time that you would either recommend or not recommend?
Oh, the Night Bus, the Harry Potter Night Bus is basically my favorite set. I loved the little like half quarter size version that came out years ago, and it was just like a little like poly bag thing. And then they came out with an actual like minifig sized version.
That was still 7 years ago.
That was oh gosh, yeah. I love that set. It sits in front of my Harry Potter books.
Nice.
Along with the little mini version and then the little double decker like London bus.
Nice.
It also gets to hang out because it's a bus.
Fair enough, the bus club.
Yeah, I love that set. It's so fun.
Now
we did build it on the beach.
You built it on a beach?
Yeah. I don't know why.
We did. We built it on the beach and we took pictures.
We were gonna do a set review of it, and then we were just like, LOL, what's editing our, photos in a timely manner?
Yeah, good times.
I'm pretty sure the instructions say specifically don't build it on a beach. You guys are rebels without a cause.
I think it said no building on Arctic tundras.
Well, that's fair.
I think that was back in the Arctic tundra days.
Fair enough. But I like it. That sounds like a fun day. That's awesome. Now,
It was very nice that day.
It was nice.
I know there's 2 versions of the night bus. Do you have the original one or the second one they made? As the minifigure scale one, I mean.
I have the minifigure scale one.
Did they do a second night bus minifigure?
Yeah,
scale?
because the first
let's find out.
one had the talking head as a sticker on the set, and the second one had it as a little 1x1 cylinder.
I think I have the cylinder version.
Okay, so I think I want to say that's the most recent one. I might be confusing the two, but I'm almost, yeah. There are the 2 of them, and I think the new one's the better one in my opinion of the sets there. So you got the good one, but awesome, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, the set that I would recommend that I just bought, the last sets I bought were clearance solo sets, which I've already bought multiple of because the parts of them are good. But the one that I built and bought is the Captain Marvel set that came out. Minifigures are great.
Nice.
Minifigures are great. The Quinjet is actually better than I thought it would be. I'm holding it right now. I kind of just dismissed it. I was like, I'm mainly getting this for the figures, but the Quinjet's actually quite fun. So yeah, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Maybe not 10 out of 10, but 8 out of 10 would recommend.
Big goose out of 10.
Goose is fun. I'm pretty sure we actually already have this exact cat, but it's, the fact that it is specifically Goose.
Who kids Goose? She's great.
Yeah.
I also definitely recommend the was it the Go Brick Yourself or Go Brick?
I want that.
Brickheads?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's Go
yeah.
Brick Yourself, yeah.
Is there Captain Marvel one?
No, that's the Brickhead.
Oh,
ones.
the Brickheads like Brick Me.
Yeah, the Go Brick Me or whatever.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
those are great.
Yeah. I remember seeing that in shops and being like, oh, I need to buy that, and the next day it was gone. I was like, it looks like fun. I really want that. Yeah, for sure.
It is a lot of fun, and it comes with a fantastic sticker sheet.
Yes, it does.
Oh, for real? I didn't know that. Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a very it's just got a little bit of everything on that sticker sheet, which is really great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is it just like stickers to put on like the shirts and stuff of the briquettes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But there's like classic space logo, like there's a basketball and like a football and like it's just a good sticker sheet.
Good sticker sheet. Ooh, I like this. Now I need to buy this set, guys. I need to get it. This next question is by Dr. Donny Boy, PhD. And this was a very interesting question I'd never even thought of before. But his question was...
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer a PhD.
I know, right? And he's... Yeah. What time of the day do you do your best mocking?
Is it 3 a.m. the day before the convention? No.
On the convention floor while the public are there.
I mean, honestly, I build throughout the whole day.
You really
Right.
do.
Yeah, I probably do most of my building late afternoon, early evening.
Yep.
Mhm.
But like, I probably don't build in the AM unless it means that I stayed up and it's now AM.
I get you. Yep.
Ugh.
But that's usually because if I have the day off, I'm probably sleeping until like 9.
Sure.
And then I'm gonna get coffee and eat breakfast and
That's fair. Yeah, okay.
pet the cat.
Yeah. And are you the same there, Maddie?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's frustrating though, because sometimes I have days where I wake up and I'm like, oh, I know what to do on this. And then I'm like, but my bus is in 15 minutes. And I'm just like, and I end up like on the bus, like getting to work, and I'm just like ruminating on this design. And I'm like, I can't sit down and just start like drawing out this concept that I'm trying to like work through. Because my preschool students are just going to swarm me and be like, what is that? Why don't you bring your Lego to school for us to look at? And I'm like, because I don't know what I would bring you guys. So,
Awesome.
yeah. I definitely say more afternoon, like evenings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I've had some like unintentional late nights where I'm just like so focused on building something, and then I'm like, oh, it's one.
Yes. I hate to be that guy. I just have the same answer, but I think I'm the same. Like I will kind of just build for kind of longer periods of time, or for like I agree. I don't think I do AM, but like PM till later at night, I'll do that. And 100% what you just said, Maddie, of like, oh, it's 3 o'clock. Like I should go to bed now. I was so focused on building,
You're like, oh.
Yeah. Although yesterday I was building, I think I started at about 6, and then it was about 8 or 9 o'clock, and I was like, okay, need to stop now. I need to do some work. And then as I did, I kind of like just kind of brushed past the table that some of my mocks are on, and then I just heard this crash, and I was like, I barely kicked that table. What is this? And my like AT-AT walker had just fallen on another mock, and it just like, and I was like, and I'm not doing any work tonight. So I fixed it. It's all good now, but it was just like come on. Yeah,
That's
I know,
my
right?
soul.
I say I'm always very leery about your mocks where you're like, here it is, and I'm just like, cool, not gonna go over there anytime soon. There are times where I'm like, I'm gonna pick this thing up off the table, then there's a mock on, and then suddenly the mock is falling, and I'm like, I didn't even touch you.
My mocks are very sturdy these days.
They are. They're doing
Nice.
much better.
Yeah, these days.
Is how does the cat do with mocks? Will it accidentally knock stuff over?
She doesn't care. No. So we have a very odd cat. She's right there. The most, you can't see her because the couch, she's literally right there right now.
Oh, yeah,
She's ignoring us because we're not.
For a
paying
minute, I
attention to
thought
her.
you meant me.
Hey,
I'm
jerk.
like, I don't have a webcam, guys. I can't see the cat.
No. Sorry, I was talking to Pat.
No, it's okay.
So, like, she's very odd because I've, like, read and seen and heard horror stories of people being like, oh my god, my cat ate, like, all these parts, and, like, they just chewed them all up, and it's awful, and, like, I can't, like, replace this part easily, like, and she just, like, does not care, but every once in a while she'll come up and, like, find, like, a single piece, and she'll just start, like, playing with it and batting it, and, like, one of her favorite things to do is, like, very gently pick it up in her mouth and, like, hold it, and then just drop it, and then, like, bat it, and then she gets really embarrassed, and then she runs away. Like, it's so strange.
She's also afraid of jumping any higher than 2.5 feet, and so she does not get on counters or tables.
There you go.
Yeah, she's a real weirdo, but we
Nice.
love her anyway. Yeah, you. The ball.
Awesome. So, the next question that we've got is by Ignatic Storyteller, and he asks, any advice for mockists that have had a long break from mock making and are a bit rusty but want to get back into this?
Build stuff.
That's the one.
That's true. Even if you, like, don't show anybody it, just
Build stuff.
do it.
I mean, the only way to get better is to do it. I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but I've been building and posting online since 2002. And there have definitely been large stretches in there where I built one thing in an entire year. And well, I've definitely picked up steam the last couple of years and have been much more consistent. There, really, the only thing I'd say is you just sit down and you just build something.
Totally.
Like the only way to, I mean, it's really the only way to get back into something is just to do it.
Just like Shia LaBeouf.
You, like, look at the stuff that you like from other people have done, and just like look at the parts that you have and just put them together.
Totally.
And then if you want to take it more, because there's always the people who are just like, I'm building for fun and here it is, and do you like it? And if you don't, just don't say anything, and that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also people who, like me, take it a little bit more seriously and are treat it a little bit more, not professionally because we're not getting paid for this, but a little bit more like an artistic medium, and a little bit more like criticism and critique, and a little bit more like color theory or character design. And I think if you get to a point where that's a thing that you want to be taken seriously in the community, and you're like, oh, I haven't done this in a while, but I'm building and I like what I'm building, I think you also just have to feel comfortable listening to what other people have to say and saying, okay. Because people aren't going to be leaving you a thing. They're like, hey, like, this is great and this is great, but the colors here don't work. Like, they're not going to leave you that comment because they hate you. They're going to leave you that comment because they see something that they like and that they think that you can do even better. I think that's important too.
Yeah. I'm going to continue the trend of agreeing with Patrick and saying that that's literally the best way to do it, is just keep making stuff and accept the fact that maybe you will be a bit rusty, but just kind of work through that and just keep building and get past that rustiness until you are no longer rusty and you are squeaky clean and you're building. And you don't have to show it all, and like be prepared to build some bad stuff and just be like, cool, let's move on to the next one and build something good. Totally. Mm-hmm. You were sort of agreeing with Patrick there, Maddie, at the start, but did you have anything else to add that you wanted to add to that? Just do it. They'll put the Shia LaBeouf picture up there.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I remember.
No, I remember. One of those like, oh, this professor like stories. Where it was like some like college, and like the pottery professor was like, oh yeah, so like you guys is final. Like half of you make one perfect pot, and then the rest of you, like the other half of y'all, basically like make 1,000 like clay pots and like bring all of them like some ridiculous amount. And it was just like, oh, the people that just like continually were working on stuff and being like, oh, it's not perfect, but I'm gonna make another one. and see what I can improve on there. Ended up making like more like strides and gains in like discovering their own style and what they preferred than like the people that were just focusing on this one single thing and trying to make it the best version possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, fill your sketchbook with a ton of stuff that you're like, this is garbage, but it's my garbage.
Yeah, that's the perfect way of looking at it.
And work through it.
Yes, for sure. Because I love that story you said of like the people who just made 1,000 pots and then eventually they made great pots, and then there were the people who were really focused on the one pot. And there's not necessarily one way that's better, but I personally agree more with the 1,000 pot thing of like, yeah, be prepared to make crap. You probably will. You will. And then eventually you'll get good stuff, and like that's that thing where I'll sometimes say like perfectionism is a bad thing, because you can be that guy who's just making the one pot and they're trying to make it perfect and it's like you probably won't be my man. Just accept it, move on, try it again. Eventually, might be eventually get perfect, but it will take a bit of time.
Well, too, like you could look at like any like prolific artist, and like look at their early work, and then look at like what they like. Vincent Van Gogh in particular, everybody's like go-to dude, but like you look at Van Gogh, whatever. Like there are like these very specific sketches of his where like he's trying to draw a person like working like at a wood table or something, and like you can see the frustration in his drawing of how he's like trying to draw these proportions of a human body and he just like cannot figure it out. And like then you look at his later ones and you're like, oh wow, you did it, like you're figuring this thing out. But like that's not a like you improve within like a day or something. Like I can draw the human figure perfectly, like
that's it, that's how it works. Totally.
Just
there's you can listen online. Someone told me about it. I haven't actually listened to it, but there's an interview with Ed Sheeran where he goes like, some of my old music awful, and he plays some, and you're like, oh my god, that's terrible, and he's like, I just kept working until I got good, and now I am, and it's like, even someone like Ed Sheeran, who's like freaking multi-award winner, like top of lists and world famous, blah blah blue, he was awful at a point, that's cool, that's awesome. And then the final question, the one that we were really excited about at the start of this, before we started the podcast. This is by my friend Eli Brinsmead, and he asks, what's your favorite drink and snake? And he stresses that this is a very important question. So,
I think, it's no surprise to probably anybody who follows my social media that I really enjoy the craft beer movement, and I like to explore those areas, especially living in Portland, which is like one of the meccas for this. I caveat that drink only legally and responsibly.
100%.
But I love, and it took me a really long time, I've been legal drinking age for 10 years, and it took me a really long time to get into IPAs, but I did, and I love the current super soft and velvety, just citrusy, like hazy IPAs, and I am literally obsessed with the brewery Modern Times that is based in San Diego / has a Portland brewery as well. They are probably my favorite brewery in the world, followed pretty closely by Great Notion here in Portland, and also American Solera in my hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Awesome.
I love coffee. I drink so much coffee. I'm a Starbucks store manager in my professional life. And so I wake up at 3 a.m. several days a week, and I go to make coffee for people who get up slightly later than me.
Yep.
So that they can live their early days that are sleeping in for me. So I make a liquid that keeps them alive, and in order to do that, I also have to drink it to stay awake. But the thing is, though, is I actually love coffee. I love the history. I love the culture. I love the exploration. I love sitting down and getting to do coffee tastings with a different roast or a different like God, like if somebody gives us like, hey, here is this Tanzanian pea berry versus this sun-dried Ethiopian Sidamo coffee, and just tasting the differences in how the cleaning process versus the roasting process versus the growth cycle. I love everything about that.
Super cool. Wow.
Yeah, and then my favorite snake. I think we decided that my favorite snake is Kevin Durant.
You just don't like snakes.
Yeah, I'm really not fond of snakes. I'm not scared of them. Like, I can see a snake at the zoo, like one of the giant snakes, and be like, oh, that's cool. Look at it breathing once every 5 minutes. That's nuts.
Yeah.
But I don't remember even which comedian it was, and it's probably one that I wouldn't even listen to anymore. But, like, one of his things about snakes is he was like, I don't like snakes. They look like they're slimy, even though I know that they're not, and I know that they're not, and I know that they're smart, and that most of them are okay, but I just don't like them.
Yeah.
Like, I can literally watch them behind glass, like, move and be like, how do your muscles work? And be fascinated by it, and, like, that's cool, and that's neat. And there's, Trevor Noah's got a great story about going and watching snakes in Bali. And that's cool. And, one of my favorite Bionicle MOCs is a snake by John Matz. It's awesome. But, like, I don't care for snakes. And I also don't care for Kevin Durant, and he's a snake.
Sure. Fair enough. What about you, Maddie? Do you care for snakes, and do you care for...
Madison loves snakes.
Okay,
Oh, awesome.
So, story time.
Story time.
The first elementary school I went to, which was for kindergarten and first grade,
yeah,
there was a snake that lived in the library. His name was George.
Nice.
He was a python. He was yellow. Like, he was amazing.
Yeah.
And he just would, like, chill out with us, all these, like, children, a bunch of, like, 5 and 6 year olds. It was the regular school, like, event was watching George eat rats.
Nice.
And it was great, because apparently that's what we did at that school. But yes, George was basically a giant sweetie. One time they thought he had gotten out and gotten lost in a neighborhood, only to discover that he had just kind of curled up in a random locker and was napping. But yeah, George was awesome.
Sweet, okay.
Meanwhile, my childhood examples of snakes was visiting some friends out in, like, rural Oklahoma. And looking outside, and there was a rattlesnake that had wrapped itself around the entirety of the outside window ledge.
Ooh.
And was trying to get in, and they shot it.
Nice.
America.
That's very Oklahoma of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't miss living there.
No.
No.
It's a very Oklahoma response, because the snake would probably also have a gun, and it would just be a snake standoff. Even though it doesn't have thumbs, it would still, like, manage to shoot something.
There is a reason that the snake used to play in Oklahoma City.
Anyway, George is great. I like George.
George sounds great.
Awesome.
I think you woke up all the coding nerds who were listening to this who went, wait, what, Python?
Did I?
I think that's a coding language.
I don't know. Most elementary schools don't just have a giant snake chilling as, like, the class school pet.
I don't even know if a lot of schools even have school pets anymore.
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, I guess not. Hey, probably not.
As for drinks, I also like beer. I really like Pilsners. But, like, I like my go-to drink, like, there's this place called New Seasons near my work, which is just a grocery store that's, like, a semi-local, like, Pacific Northwest chain. They have this drink called the Puget Fog, which is a London fog, which is... What's in that?
It's an Earl Grey tea latte.
It's an Earl Grey tea latte. But they renamed it the Puget Fog because there's a place called the Puget Sound in Washington, which is a lovely place.
Yeah.
The only difference between a Puget Fog and a London fog is there's more, like, lavender to it. So it's very, like, florally and almost like Fruity Pebbles cereal, except, like, without the sugar rush.
Cool, okay.
And it's just really nice. It's basically getting me through some days at work because the kids are just like, bah! And I'm like, can you not do that noise, please? So,
Awesome.
and it just tastes delicious.
Fantastic. Very cool. You guys had way cooler answers than me. My favorite drink is water because I don't drink like anything. The only other thing I drink is milkshakes. I suppose actually that should probably be my other answer. Is a
Oh, You need to come. Oh my gosh, you need to come to Portland to have a pie shake.
Talk to me about this.
A pie shake
Talk to me about
is
that.
a concoction that this. I don't think that that particular chain started it.
Oh no,
Restaurants,
I'm
no,
sure a bunch of
but
restaurants
they
might
have.
them.
There's a place here called Sherry's. This restaurant, and they have really good pies. And one of the things they will do is they will take an entire piece triangle of pie and they will throw it in a blender with ice cream and they will blend you a pie shake.
Yeah.
You can have any pie shake flavor you want. And it is oh my god, it shouldn't be that good, but it's so delicious because you're here's my milkshake, but also there's pie crust and pie filling in it.
Yes.
And it's just great.
Good.
Pie crust is the best part of it.
Very cool. Yeah, I'd be down for that. Portillo's in Chicago has a milkshake. I forget what it's called, but they shove a slice of mud cake in it. And that's good, especially too because you can get little chunks of mud cake when you're drinking it. And you're like, it's good. It's very chocolatey, but it's good.
Oh, I imagine.
Perth is awful for milkshakes, and I hate it. I've been to 2 places in Perth that have a good cookies and Oreo milkshakes. Oreo milkshakes is top tier for me. I've been to multiple places in Perth and they're all awful for Oreo milkshakes. The one place that has them is TGI Fridays, which we only just got one of them in Perth. I love that place. But the one that is in Perth is so expensive. It's $12 for an Oreo milkshake there. It's ridiculous. Oh, no. But they have another milkshake, which is $17. And yeah, it's like a vanilla milkshake, but they shove you get three cupcakes, a slice of cake, and another thing with it too, and it's basically dessert, and it's the first thing they give you because you order your drinks first kind of thing, and you're like, guess I'm starting with dessert, and then you get your burger after, and you're like, I just had 3 slices of cake, why have you given me this?
You're like, I'm still on dessert, why are you giving me more?
Precisely, yeah.
Will you make this into a milkshake too?
But then I went somewhere else for an Oreo milkshake the other day. It was called, I think it's called Monster Burger or something. It's this new little place near one of the train stations. Very nice Oreo milkshake there, which I was pleasantly surprised by. But there's another place I went to that has it's kind of another kind of monstery milkshake thing. It was a chocolate milkshake that had just a full cornetto drumstick in the middle of it. Jeez. Yeah, which was oh my god, sure. It had Nutella all along the edges and on the inside. It had ice cream on top too. It was only it was $11, which is still a little bit, no, it was $8 or something. It was actually decently priced, especially because they gave me a whole thing of ice cream. And it was one of those things where I was I made a mess eating it because it was just well, you shoved an ice cream in the middle of my milkshake. And so eating it, it's all drenched in milkshake. Yeah. But it was gorgeous. It was brilliant. So I have very select places that I've at least discovered that have milkshakes, but I've done some hunting. So I would say that place, nice. Which I can't remember what that store was called. But yeah. As for snakes, you'd think because I live in Australia I'd have more snake stories, but it's 100. Well, it isn't a myth. All the stuff about Australia will kill you. If you go into the bush, yeah, stuff will kill you. But if you live in the city, no. There was a snake, which was a actually pretty deadly snake that was in our school, because our school, not so much now, but it used to have a lot of kind of bushes and trees and stuff, and so snakes would be in those. And so it's if you were crawling around in a bush, there's a chance you might get bitten by a snake, right? And one time I was walking back from lunch and this snake just slithered over my friend's shoe, and I was just nope, and just ran. Yeah. So that's kind of the only snake story I have, but I guess favorite snake, that one, because it's the one I met. But I do like the big yellow pythons, nice. Like you were saying before. Although, do gummy snakes count? Because those would probably be my favorite snakes.
Yeah, why not?
Go with
yeah.
Good. Yeah. That would be my favorite snake. Yeah, for sure. But dude, all the stuff you were saying about all that coffee culture and stuff, some of those terms, you should have seen my face. I was what? Sounds way more interesting than I thought it. Just because I've not even been exposed to that kind of aspect of that. That's really cool.
I do love coffee.
Awesome. That's it for all the questions that we had today, and we are 2 hours into the podcast, so it's probably time to stop, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop talking. I mean, if you guys need to go, we can, but I'm having a blast chatting with you guys. So we'll call it here for the podcast, and then if you want to talk after, we always can. Yeah. So thank you guys both for being on here. I'm very happy that I planned this podcast with Patrick, and then Maddie was also in on it. I'm more than happy with this double guest.
Surprise.
Yeah. If people want to find you online, of course there'll be links in the description, but where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at well, at dviddy, DVIDDY. That is also my Flickr username. And yeah, I guess there's really, I mean, I'm on BZ Power, but you know, me and like 5 other people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's kind of dead.
It's a shame.
It's trying its best.
It is trying its
Yeah.
best.
We'll give it that.
But yeah, Flickr and Instagram are probably the main 2 places for me.
Perfect.
Madison, where could they find you?
That's a good question. In Portland.
Ooh, same.
On Instagram, I'm Madison_2D. That's MADDISON_ and then the number 2 and the letter D. Then on Flickr, I think I'm Sunlitequinox.
Pretty sure.
Pretty sure.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Sweet. Thank you guys so much for being on. I had an absolute blast. And hopefully you guys still want to chat after, because I still want to have an absolute blast. Thanks, guys. See you in the next podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.